It's Halloween, the time of year to celebrate everything that scares us whilst getting sick from a sugar overdose.
And what better way to get in the spirit than by watching a couple of good slasher films? And today we're pitting Bubba Sawyer, or as he's better known, Leatherface, up against the face of Halloween himself, Michael Myers.
These two slasher villains are without a doubt iconic, but only one of them can walk out of this alive. I'm your host Joe.
And I'm your co-host Britt.
We've taken an in-depth look at these competitors to find out who would win in a battle. So without further ado, let's get on with the episode. Before he was known as the chainsaw-wielding maniac Leatherface, he was simply a boy named Bubba Sawyer. Not much is really known about his childhood, aside from the fact that he was born with some very serious facial deformities, as well as being labelled as legally retarded by doctors. But that didn't stop him from landing a job alongside his brother Nubbins at a slaughterhouse in Ute, Texas.
Nubbins? What kind of name is that? It sounds like a promotional item on the KFC menu. Were they drunk and just pointed at the newborn and said, He'll be known as Nubbins. Yes, Nubbins Sawyer. Hey, pass me another beer. No offense to all the people named Nubbins out there. All 12 of you.
Bubba was set working in the kill room, where his job was to take a sledgehammer and smash it over the heads of cows to kill them. But years later, the slaughterhouse changed their method of killing from a sledgehammer to a bolt gun, and this put him and Nubbins out of a job. So with nowhere else to go, they turned to their older brother Drayton for support. Drayton was the owner of the Last Chance gas station, but this was not enough to support their family.
So they decided to resort to what they know best, meat. But if you're thinking I'm talking about hot dogs and hamburgers, then you'd be dead wrong. Dead wrong? See what I did there? No? Screw you! The cannibals would have found that hysterical! Well, the Sawyers started killing people and cooking them up to eat, and selling whatever leftovers they had at the gas station.
Drayton handled the cooking while Bubba and Nubbins did all of the hunting and killing, and from killing so many of his victims, Bubba learned how to cover up his messed up face with a mask he would make from his victims' faces. This would ultimately earn him the nickname of Leatherface.
And of course, what's a horror villain without a trademark weapon? A lot less threatening, that's what.
In Leatherface's case, his weapon of choice is his trusty chainsaw, a Poland 4900 coming with a 36-inch bar, a maximum revs per minute of 4,500, and a fuel tank that holds up to an hour's worth of fuel, as well as having mods done to the chainsaw that allows it to operate underwater.
The perfect choice for getting rid of those pesky trees. And people.
But that's not all either. He also carries with him a meat cleaver and a meat hammer, which he uses for preparing his victims, but they're just as effective as being used as weapons. And for more close quarter options, Leatherface also packs an electric bone saw, but Leatherface's most potent weapon is perhaps his ability to instill fear in his victims, which he relies on the most.
Ha! It'd take a lot more than a big guy with a chainsaw to instill fear into me.
Okay, how about a big guy with a chainsaw that wears the skin of his victims on his face as a mask?
Yeah, that would do it. Now I see where the instilling of the fear comes in. But anyway, Leatherface is also pretty physically impressive for some lunatic with a chainsaw. He's tough enough to get right back up after getting hit by a car, and then pull the hood off the trunk of the car that just hit him. And if that's not enough for you, he's also survived a point-blank explosion from a grenade, while he was pierced through the stomach with Lieutenant Enright's chainsaw.
And speaking of chainsaws, I mentioned earlier that Leatherface used a Poland model 4900. These weigh 16 pounds, and yet Leatherface is able to keep up with people running as fast as they can while carrying that thing over his head. He's also strong enough to smash through wooden doors with his bare hands, and despite being legally retarded, is shown to be capable of basic tasks such as driving a truck.
But sadly, no slasher baddie can come without some way to beat them. And Leatherface is certainly no exception. For one, he can be stunned just by hitting him in the face. And the fact he's mentally challenged means he can easily be outsmarted.
Leatherface is also very reliant on his brothers for support, and it is implied that without them he would not be able to survive on his own.
He's also regular Pepe Le Pew, as he'll fawn over any pretty face and refrain from hurting women, unless they hurt his family, of course.
But don't be led to believe that Leatherface isn't a threat. This furniture-branding, chainsaw-wielding, face-wearing cannibal will tenderize you if he gets the chance.
Michael Myers got his start to stardom on Saturday Night Live, before making it big with movies like Shrek, Austin Powers, Cat in the Hat.
Dude, that's Mike Myers.
Oh, my bad. Michael Myers was born October 19th, 1957. He was a pretty normal kid, until one Halloween night, when 6-year-old Michael murdered his own sister Judith while she was babysitting them. This got him sent to the Smiths Grove Sanitarium, where for 15 years, Dr. Samuel Loomis tried to reach out to him. But he had trouble doing this, as he could only describe as what he saw in Michael as purely evil.
Clearly Michael wasn't all there. One Hallows Eve, when Loomis and a nurse were trying to transfer him to a different location, a breakout occurred and Michael seized the opportunity to carjack the nurse and drove off to make his way back to Haddonfield, Illinois.
But not before making a pit stop to kill a mechanic and steal his jumpsuit. You know, your typical road trip stuff. Once he made it back to Haddonfield, he broke into a hardware store and stole himself a few knives and some rope, as well as his iconic Halloween mask that we all recognize Michael for today. And his first order of business was to find and stalk a girl known as Laurie Strode.
This resulted in a Halloween to be remembered, a night full of murder and terror, until Loomis followed him back to Haddonfield and blew him and a part of the hospital up with an oxygen explosion. Because, you know, better to be safe than sorry.
But, believe it or not, this didn't even kill Michael. It only put him in a coma for 10 years. And since that day, Michael's been quote-unquote killed many times, only to come back every Halloween for more murderous mayhem, time and time again. And that's all thanks to a little something called the Curse of Thorn.
Remember how Loomis described something inside Michael as purely evil? Well, he really wasn't wrong. You see, when Michael was a kid, a group known as the Cult of Thorn cursed him with the Curse of Thorn. This curse requires the bearer to murder all of their family on the night of Samhain, also known as Halloween, in order to protect their community from disastrous events. And thanks to it, Michael is now practically superhuman and can't be killed by normal means, at least until he kills the rest of his family.
But with that said, Michael rarely kills his victims with brute force. Instead, he prefers to use a more tactical approach, utilizing stealth against his victims. That and his trusty kitchen knife, which he uses for brutal stabbings.
And?
I'm so glad you asked.
Oh, I feel like I'm gonna regret this.
Hey there, Sully Sells here today with the Michael Myers kitchen knife. This beauty is produced by Lamson and crafted out of fine stainless steel, with a 12-inch blade that is as sharp as a knife, and it can be yours today with just one small payment of $19.78. We're not responsible for any murder, disembowelment, trauma, nights of terror caused by this product. Call now while supplies last, limited to 2 per customer.
Well, after whatever that was, let's get back to Michael, shall we?
You got it. Michael can dodge bullets at near point-blank range. On average, a 9mm bullet travels around 1,200 feet per second. And if that's not good enough for you, Michael has also reacted to a double-barrel shotgun. But not in the way you think. This one was being swung at Michael like a baseball bat, and he caught it with one hand before it hit him. Michael's also pretty tough. He's walked out of an entire hospital room after it exploded while on fire. He's been hit by a truck going at high speeds, and right after that, shot by a firing squad, and still managed to avoid an explosion from a stick of dynamite thrown at him. Michael has also wiped out 2 police stations filled with heavily armed officers all by himself. Plus, he's strong enough to ram a shotgun through a person hard enough to pin them through a door. Also, according to Dr. Loomis himself, not even hell would accept Michael Myers. But don't think that means he's without his flaws. Well, he's got impressive speed feats. He barely takes advantage of this and moves so frickin' slow when confronting victims. Plus, just like an ordinary human, he can still be affected by drugs and tranquilizers, and even outright killed. Granted, if he is killed, he can come back, but not until the next All Hallows Eve.
Now that we've analysed our fighters, it's time for them to go head to head. Let's push their limits.
Limit break. Fight.
winner of this fight is Michael Myers, and boy, was that a good way to spend Halloween.
To start things on a positive with Leatherface, he had the advantage of versatility by having more tools to work with, as well as having a superior primary weapon. After all, a chainsaw would in fact be more brutal of a weapon than an ordinary knife would.
But unfortunately for Leatherface, Michael still took it in intelligence, physicality, and speed.
Plus, Michael's more tactical and stealth-based approach to killing people also proved beneficial against the more mentally handicapped Leatherface, who has been outsmarted by his own victims before. It was certainly more useful than Leatherface's ability to instill fear into people, considering Michael isn't the kind of guy to get scared easily, if at all.
That's not even taking their physicality into account. Leatherface may be able to keep up with average people while carrying his chainsaw, and he's tough enough to survive a grenade explosion, which on average would be 4,148 newtons. But not only has Michael survived an explosion of similar or greater caliber, he survived it and then walked out of it like it was nothing.
As weird as it sounds, Leatherface was just too human to beat Michael. The winner of this clash is Michael Myers.
Next month on Limit Break.
"お前はもう死んでいる。